Okay, we call the Human Service Commission meeting to order. We're a little bit past 6:38. A roll call. Mike, are you willing?
Commissioner Nishioka,
Present.
Commissioner Muir,
Present.
Commissioner Gano,
Here.
Commissioner Heilman,
Present.
Commissioner Barnes,
Present.
Commissioner Benek,
Present.
and Chair Bottenberg.
Present. Okay, Stan, would you lead the the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any difference between the agenda that was sent to us and the one that was on our table here?
Nope, they should be the same agendas.
Okay. Then our first matter of business is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to accept?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think there was a revised agenda that came out that included the presentation. And I don't see it on this. Oh, it's on the backside. I apologize. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, and that's the loose piece of paper, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Is there further discussion? There being no discussion, the motion is to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Approval of the minutes for the June 8th regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 8th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion? There being no discussion, the motion's been made to accept the minutes as presented. Okay, is there public comment?
Chair, I do not see any members of the public online tonight, and there are no members of the public here in person.
Then we will move into the new business and turn, I guess, the meeting over to the people on my left. The meeting is turned over to our group over here.
All right, thank you. We have 3 sections: cultural inclusion, domestic violence, and seniors. And so, of course, we're going to go do it by section, but we're going to start with the biggest one, cultural inclusion, which has the most applications. And Nishina's going to lead that part.
How do we make it louder?
Excuse me, Mike, can we turn this up a lot?
Yeah,
I'm deaf on the end.
I am going to turn up the mic and the speakers as much as I am able to. Just let me know if we need to try something else.
So can we move to the first application by 4 tomorrow? Yeah. So for this application, Judy and I agreed that we should definitely fund it, but their proposal, the amount they requested was 150,000. And we felt that that was too much. And we checked with Rita as to how much what type of support do we provide to other rental and mortgage assistance programs like St. Vincent de Paul's and others. And she said that typically it's in the range of 10 to 15,000. So that's the level at which we decided to fund them. Their service units were, so through this, they will actually provide 35 months of mortgage or rent assistance and 8 move-in assistance, targets were also included in the proposal. So we felt that we should fund it to the tune of 15,000. Any questions on this one?
Is this a totally new program? Okay. Thank you.
Can we move to the next one then?
I've got one question on that. Is mortgage assistance pretty common? I mean, I know rental assistance is, but are there a lot of other organizations providing mortgage assistance?
So traditionally, we do not do mortgage assistance. So when we fund basic need providers, they tend to be in the rental assistance range. Because mortgage assistance, as we know, like it's going to potentially be a lot higher. So traditionally we've always funded rental assistance providers, and mortgage assistance is more something that, you know, people would take up with their actual financial providers.
And I
Can I
said
ask
that's
a
4
question?
months rent, typically 4 months rent is what I was reading anyway.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do we know if there's any case management included in this? I mean, if people have gotten in a situation where they need assistance, I didn't know if there was some case management to help them.
I see that.
Not in this particular, I don't think any case management was included in this particular proposal.
Okay, thank you.
This is the Latinx. Go ahead.
So
This is all-
I'll just add that For Tomorrow applied for 3 different proposals. One was rental assistance, one was mental health, and one was a life services.
Yeah.
And life services is more what you're thinking of case management. They do referrals to other, so we're going to get to that one. It wasn't included in the proposal for rental assistance. That was primarily rental assistance. But we'll get to the other
Yeah,
proposal.
the next one actually is the next proposal For Tomorrow is actually on case management, the life services program. So through this, they'll obviously provide comprehensive case management to the Latinx community in particular. For this one, we decided the request came in at 36,305, but we recommended 15,000, partly because this organization does not as yet have a strong track record in Sammamish, right, Rita? And so because we'll be funding them for the first time, we felt that 15,000 was appropriate. And if they are able to meet their service units, maybe we can consider funding them at a higher level in the future. Any questions on this one?
It seems like we're providing a lot of money to this organization if they don't have a large track record. Is there any risk to that?
Well, they're a new program, so Rita's been in conversation with them for the last, 2 years?
So I will say, Commissioner Banak, yes, they're a new organization and they've definitely come definitely into fruition during COVID. I will say with regards to whether they have a track record in Sammamish, we only pay according to service units and residents served. So yeah, I don't think we definitively know. I know they've guesstimated what they want to do in the way of service units and residents, but yeah, we'll have to see.
I think we also have that caveat that the funding doesn't start until January 1st. They're not turning in their quarterly report until March 31st. So there's a lot of time. We're hoping to get up and running and whatever else funding that they're going to need here too. It's interesting that we have 9 new to this funding in this group.
The service units they are proposing are quite decent in the sense that for case management, 60-minute case management appointments, they're proposing to complete almost 249 of those, and then 30-minute follow-up sessions, they'll complete like 150, which, you know, if they're able to meet those targets, I think we can certainly consider, you know, maybe increasing the funding or reconsider funding in the next round.
I would also add that, as I mentioned before, they have what, 3 proposals, and they're all related. So it's somewhat leveraging the other programs that
Yeah.
they work very much. They have like a life service programs, and they have the mental health program, and then they have the rental assistance, and they all refer to each other. And so my feeling was that it'd be good for us to, if we wouldn't just fund one of the programs, that funding all 3 is providing them more of a wraparound support so that all the programs can succeed and work in conjunction with each other. So it's sort of leveraging each other that way. But we're not, that's balanced with the fact that it is a newer program. We have been in communication with them. I know Rita's talked to them outside of this program. I've talked to them, and not about their proposal, but just in general. And they do have pretty strong connections to the communities that they serve. And, you know, we're not funding them at a very high level. So if we do all 3 programs at a lower level than what they're asking, we're still supporting them across, but it's not a huge commitment.
Are they only for the Lake Washington School District for the Life Services Program? So it's not the full. I see they did a Bellevue pilot last year.
I'm sorry, what was your question? I didn't hear you.
We're still talking Life Services Program, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw some reference to the Lake Washington School District in that section. And I'm just wondering if they're not doing Latinx on the whole community. Just curious. It's not important for the decision here.
They're not doing what, Joyce?
I was asking if Life Services Program also touched the Issaquah School District.
Oh.
It's in the Lake Washington School District.
Chair, I will say they have traditionally, like they've had a good rapport with Bellevue School District, and now they're going to Lake Washington. I don't believe they're in Issaquah as of yet.
Okay, thank you.
Can we move to the mental health coordination? So the last proposal in this packet, this bundle that For Tomorrow had submitted is focused on mental health. And in the Latinx community, as in many other immigrant communities, there is quite a bit of stigma attached to seeking mental health services. So this proposal really addresses an important need. And in the proposal, they have mentioned that adults seeking Spanish therapy have had to wait over 6 months sometimes to receive those services. And so we felt that this would meet an important need in the community, and we decided to fund it to a tune of $10,000. And this would come to roughly, we looked at the service units and the total hours of counseling and therapy, and it comes to roughly $191 per person, which seemed reasonable. Any questions?
How does that compare with other organizations that provide mental health services on a per hour basis?
What was your question?
Sure. So you said it's about $191 per hour. How do they compare with other mental health organizations? Do we have a good feel for that, per hour?
We don't have a comparison of other mental health
Yeah.
programs that have applied through the cultural
Okay.
inclusion program. So we
Okay.
don't have those, but we were thinking just, if you look at that and then look at this, the units, it's not all
Yeah,
per client.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it, you can,
Yeah,
we
it's just-
calculated that, but really
yeah,
it's by, they reach a lot of other folks because they're doing group sessions
Okay.
yeah,
as well
And
as.
yeah, that definitely makes
yeah.
a difference.
So
Thank-
Rich, to your question, I think roughly like that, I would say that's fairly standard. Like, I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
No, that's really good. So like I said, I think just knowing that, when we can do, comparisons with the different mental health supports, knowing what
yeah.
is
I mean, the hourly rate would vary based on the qualifications of the therapist also. We don't have that level of information. So if you have a PhD level therapist, their rates are higher than someone who just has a master's degree or less experience. So that varies. But as a standard, this is reasonable. Any other questions? So then can we move on to the next one? So for this particular application, which will provide more family support and youth engagement, again, to the Latinx community, we decided to fund it at 15,000. It came in at 25,000. And there were some questions around the service units because they had initially submitted very high numbers. Then they came back with numbers that seemed completely reasonable. I don't have the numbers, the new numbers with me, but they proposed to conduct like trainings, workshops, and other classes, which are focused on bilingual citizenship, English classes, financial workshops. They'll be providing youth services, bilingual tutoring, financial aid workshops. And then they'll have other outreach services as well. So the service units that they proposed and the number of residents they were planning to reach seemed reasonable. And so that was our rationale for funding them at 15,000. Any questions on that one?
Is this actually another new program?
It's a newly funded for us, but they're not a new program.
Okay. How long have they been around, do you know?
I forget how long they've been in Redmond for quite a while.
Commissioner Nishioka, you're correct. They have been based in Redmond for many years. They've only this go round have applied for funding from all the cities. Prior to this, they were not funded in any way for human services. They also have a new location within Redmond, and also the executive director and someone else on the board were awarded the Community Workers of King County big award. So they've done a lot of outreach within the community, specifically around COVID and education and that kind of thing. But yes, but they are based in Redmond, and this is the first time they're applying for funding.
And their resident count is 1,000, or was there some kind of change to that?
How many will the residents? I mean, it's 760.
Okay, am I looking at the wrong one? I'm looking at else.
Or
Commissioner
have
Mayor,
the numbers
remember they
changed?
did a
They
resubmitting,
changed it. So
yes,
how
and then
much
that was
it,
so that had come down. So let me just
150 maybe, right?
quickly, I believe it was 150. Let me just look into that very quickly. Yeah.
Okay,
Was
so
that,
I'm looking on the resident count sheet that says 1,000.
Yeah, so Chair, they actually resubmitted their service unit and the resident numbers, so they're a lot lower. And I will bring those up. Just give me one moment.
so is this, my question is, maybe I'm having problems hearing. Is this the population served in Sammamish that we're discussing?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Their numbers were I don't know whether there was some error, but the service unit numbers as well as, the residents served
resident
was very
number-
high originally, but then they resubmitted those numbers.
The
And
resident number is now at 150
150, yeah, that's what I
that they're
remember.
going to serve.
Yeah.
150, right?
150, correct.
Yeah. Can we somehow or other get more sound?
I'm sorry, we probably need to just be better talking into the mic. I'm probably,
That's the problem? Okay.
sorry.
Okay, okay. Any other questions on this one?
They were programmed to the Rotary Club a couple of weeks ago, and boy, are they are lively, wonderful, culturally,
Yeah,
just so exciting to have them with us.
Oh,
that's great.
wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
was
really
very,
good to
very
know.
impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, based on the application, it seemed like, yeah, they've done a lot of work with the community. Can we move to the next one then? So this is a cultural navigation focused program. And we had some questions about this particular application because they don't have funding from diverse sources. We also compared this particular program with the IACS Cultural Navigation Program. The IACS service units are very high. What IACS has proposed, the numbers are very high, but we did take into account the fact that this particular program is relatively new, so they will need time to ramp up their work. So we decided to fund them to a tune of $10,000 at this point. And if they're able to meet their service units, then maybe we can reconsider funding them or funding them at a higher level next time.
And it's for new youth and families, correct? A director and a part-time staff.
They just recently got their 501c3 in 2021 or 2022. So they're a relatively new organization.
Is this correct, though? The last award was 45,000?
That's incorrect. This is the first time that they've ever applied to us for funding.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay,
that
so
should have
that's
been a
an
zero.
error on the
Yeah, that should be a
application.
zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you looking at? I don't see that.
Sorry,
Oh.
in the one in the Dropbox, it says 2021 award 45,000.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
This one says 0%. You don't
Yeah,
think it's the
mine
right one?
has 0 on it.
The cultural navigation
Oh,
program?
that's a different one.
Oh,
There's two.
so there are two. That's what I was talking about, Julie, that,
IACS, we were talking about the, is so-called
Yeah.
cultural circle.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I was comparing this earlier with IACS, which is the one you're looking at. And that is a very mature program and their service numbers are very high. So we did compare the two
Okay.
in order to arrive at, what should be
Yes.
the right level of funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? So then should we move to the next one? Yeah. So again, we have a number of applications. So just as For Tomorrow had submitted a package of 3, IACS has also submitted 3, one focused on mental health support, another on women, youth and seniors program, and the third on cultural navigation. So this is their program on mental health support, which is, they've developed services that are really culturally and linguistically appropriate for the American community as well as other communities that they work with. And I think their service units they met their service units last year, right, through Rita? So in general, like this organization is a very high performing organization. They have been in the community for a very long time. And this is an important service that is needed by the community. So we decided to fund it to the fullest extent. They had requested 15,000, which seemed reasonable. And we decided to fully fund it.
And this is the one that has yoga, music, meditation, and focuses on women, families, youth, and over age 55.
No, this is like they have.
I mean, they do. They have like, that's part of it. It says our
Chair,
support
that's-
groups
sorry.
are focused on the various demographics and includes activities such as meditative art, meditation, yoga, journaling, outdoor walks, music, and other wellness activities.
You're too
Those
far
are the
from your
sup-
mic.
That's only the support groups that do that.
So Joyce, this one is supposed to, this particular proposal is for support group sessions, individual support group sessions, as well as 30-minute individual counseling sessions with a licensed mental health professional.
And I noticed the FTE count is 4.5 for each one of these. Is this the same 4.5 or how does that work?
Wait, it's what's
The FTE count
Oh,
for each of the IACS.
the F-
total number of paid FTs, yeah, 4.5, yeah. So what's your
Far as I'm
question?
concerned, everything Indian American Community Service does is fantastic. So I'm just trying to figure out which is which here. I understand the pop-up one is the next one, and this one is. the
Yeah, so they've
mental health.
submitted 3, one for cultural navigation, which is the pop-up one, then one for mental health and one for small business support.
Oh, no, and then there's 4 actually. There's the women's,
Okay,
yeah.
so
There's
there's
a-
another one, yeah.
There's that small business. down.
There's one focusing on women, youth and seniors.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the mental health one.
I'll just to give a little context and a big picture level. We did not think that the small business proposal was within human services, generally speaking, right? So didn't we not? fund
We
that one?
decided not to fund that
Yeah,
one,
but
yeah.
the other three we fully funded at the request level that they did, and we'll go through them one-on-one, but
Yeah.
just to kind of give you an overarching view.
But the request was actually much more reasonable than the
Yeah.
other proposals we received, like the other proposals were upward of, many of them were upward of 25,000. There's 3 of the proposals were for 15,000 and one for 5,000. So should we move on to the next one then? Yep. So this particular proposal is to provide services through IACS's women, senior and youth programs. So these are 3 distinct programs, and they provide programming, different types of programming for these different groups. And again, these programs have been around for a long time and are well established, and we have continued to fund them in the past. We decided to fund them to the fullest extent, so which was 15,000.
Also want to note that Rita informed us that they applied similar programs last year and they surpassed all of their metrics last year.
Yeah. Any questions on this one? No? Okay. So we'll move to the next one in that case. So this is one we decided not to fund.
Is this cultural bridges as we knew it?
Yeah, they've changed the name now to cultural circles.
Okay.
Okay, so wait, which one is this?
I have cultural
Issaquah
bridges on my page
Yeah.
one.
Issaquah School Foundation.
So we decided not to fund this one for a number of reasons. I mean, their primary focus is on publishing a magazine called the Cultural Bridges magazine. We did not, it wasn't a comprehensive package of cultural inclusion services. We did not think that, it made sense to provide funding for a magazine, and they also did not provide any details about other funding sources, about their service units. So for a number of reasons, we just didn't have enough information. And then what they did propose was not that meaningful. So we decided not to fund this particular proposal.
But we gave them $11,000 last time. Why didn't they give us a budget? I mean, a real budget, not just magazines.
And chairs, we did reach out to them with those questions and they did not respond. I will say that this application definitely had more of an emphasis on the actual magazine, whereas in the past they were definitely focused on service units helping individuals. This seems to have more of a focus on the Cultural Bridges magazine and really wanting help for publishing and translating that.
They also claimed one-on-one with people too. I don't know how that figures in. I just know that it's been around for so many years, and the fact that, well, let's say Rotary funded the one language each year, so that it was just weird that it's so incomplete here.
Yeah. And in the absence of we don't even have information about, they didn't complete the template that all other organizations have used. So we don't have information about what are their other funding sources, what are their service units. In the absence of that information, you can't really make a decision.
And I will say, Commissioner Mayor, two of the staff members have actually left to go to Issaquah Cultural Circle for the Cultural Navigation Program. And that is the program you're funding at 10,000.
Hmm.
And they said they were going to target 11,000.
My sense is, Chair, that would be just who potentially the magazines could be distributed to, as in the population, yeah.
Okay. I just remember it as a fine thing years ago, but I feel kind of incomplete here, really. Okay.
Should we move on to the next one then? Yeah, so this is the third IACS proposal, and this one is for cultural navigation. And as Joyce was saying earlier, they have pop-up units that, where they provide a number of different types of information to immigrant communities about health insurance, about other community resources. And again, this is an established program. It's a well-used program. So we decided to fund it to a tune of 10,000, which is what they had requested.
Yeah, last time we gave them 45,000.
No,
split it differently?
4,500.
Is that what it's supposed to say?
It's an error then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 35 languages.
Any questions on this one? And
Looks like all their
consistently,
money is based, it looks like it's all focused on case management, and at least, is that a correct statement?
Yes, that is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, good.
yeah. Yep. Should we move on to the next one then? Okay. So this next one, we decided not to fund because this is not really serving the Sammamish area.
South
So-
King County, I see.
When we read it, it looks like they might have just accidentally checked
Yeah.
Sammamish
Yeah.
on the application because it's
Yeah.
multi-city. Because there's no relationship to Sammamish. So I think that was
exactly.
just a mistake on their part. So we
Yeah.
just didn't fund them.
And then yet they were projecting 100 residents from 5.
But if you read the narrative, they don't serve the
Yeah.
Sammamish area.
Yeah, and it says South King County,
Right.
Yeah.
and their revenues are just about the same for everyone that they have applied to. They wanted the same 10,000 except Auburn.
Correct. It might be that they didn't fully understand the process because this, if you've not done the multi-city application before and you're not, it's a little complicated. It's confusing. I have a hard time with it myself.
So the next one then? Yeah, so again, this one, yeah, we decided not to fund this because even though they say that the program is focused on DEI for people with disabilities, if you really review the application, it's largely focused on translation services, on translating materials. So it has a heavy focus on translation, which is a very limited understanding of cultural inclusion. So we had other applications that were much more comprehensive. So we decided not to fund this one.
And there were 15 residents here.
Yeah. Any questions on this one?
No.
So we can move to the next one. Again, this, this program, again, has a strong track record, and they provide important navigation services to Asian seniors for health and service needs. So we decided to fund it to the fullest extent. Their service units also seemed reasonable. They plan to, their outreach numbers and numbers for trainings and sessions were quite reasonable. So they were planning to do outreach with 80 individuals, and then conduct like assessments with 50 seniors, and then they'll offer trainings, workshops, and classes to 50. So again, the service units were reasonable. They'll reach a total number of 30 residents through city funding. So we felt that it made sense to fund this.
But this is the first time it looks like they've applied for funding.
To any of the cities.
Yeah, but they've been
Mhm.
around for a long time.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time they've applied to the cities.
Any questions on this one, or? Should we move to the next one in that case? We have 2 more applications, I think, for cultural inclusion. So this next one, we decided to fully fund it, mainly because the purpose here is to train librarians to evaluate, audit, and diversify print and digital collections. But then also, they'll also be providing culturally diverse books to two different schools. What were the names of the schools, Rita?
I think it was Inglewood and Eastlake,
Yeah.
right?
They actually didn't specify, Commissioner Mira Nishioka. I'm assuming it was Eastlake and
Okay.
Inglewood, but yeah,
Yeah.
I get that clarified. I did reach out to them.
Yeah. So we felt that this is, so this was a unique application among all the cultural inclusion applications. And we do feel that having culturally diverse books and other materials is really important. So one question I did have was around the use. How will they ensure that these materials are actually being used? Because you don't want to provide books that are just sitting on the shelf or people are not aware and are not using them. So as a follow-up, I think, Rita, like that's one of the questions that you'll probably have for them.
I think one of my questions is there other training available to librarians? So I wouldn't necessarily think the librarians are the people that we would be aiming to focus on. Is there other training that they can get, that might provide similar, hey, how to, have a more diverse library?
So is your question under this proposal, you're wondering if they will be training more than 2 librarians?
I'm wondering, my thought is this would this be considered just part of professional development and how to do this? I mean, my one concern about it is that it's just for half of the Sammamish, but the other thing is that we're really not necessarily helping people directly. It's more of a kind of professional development type of service.
Yep, I think that is correct. I think it's professional development to make sure, to try and ensure that our libraries can serve the students culturally appropriate. And so I think your assessment is correct, that it's not directly to the students. I mean, the books are directly to the students. It is, as Nushina said, has a different tenor than all of the rest of the applications. It's not working directly with clients, but it is a systemic approach, right? Trying to change the whole library system. And they just piloted it for the first time last year, not funded by us, but piloted it at one of the schools. So I think it's more of a systemic approach than it is individual clients.
May I ask a question? Is this something that the school district doesn't do? I would assume the school district would be responsible for hiring books and materials.
Well,
and
the Lake
training
Washington
librarians
Schools
if
Foundation,
necessary.
yeah, the Lake Washington Schools Foundation works really closely with the school district, right? They're
Realize
the
that.
fundraising arm of it. So even though their programs are separate,
I
They-
didn't know if the school district funded the books, if the school
Yeah.
district, funded training for the librarians.
I'm sure they do. They probably just see this as, they probably identified this. Well, they've identified this as an area that they didn't have enough training. And the books that have been existing in the system for all these years are not reflective of the changing demographic that we now have in Lake Washington School District. So they're trying to bring it up to date.
So Stan, I
So-
think what could be happening is that we have a specific priority area focused on cultural inclusion, which is generally not like you would not find that normally. Or so I don't know whether the school district would provide specific funding for, this type of training. Like they may have some broad bucket, for professional development or training. But since this is so focused, I'm assuming that's why they applied for our support, because they can then specifically direct this funding towards this type of training. So
I-
maybe that could be the reason
I
why.
can appreciate that, but is there a way to me, if I was on the school board, if parents came to me and told me that this was needed within the school system as part of the system, I would find a way to fund it for education.
Sure. I think
Yeah.
that is definitely a lack. They should be doing this.
Yeah.
So hopefully we fund it now and there's a bigger push to the school
Yeah.
districts to get them to take care of the cultures that are out there
Yeah.
And
and
I've
the
read,
diversity that we need to take care of.
Mhm.
It's a good question. I think as a follow-up, Rita, it might be worth asking, as to whether the school district provides this type of support. Like, how will they sustain something like this? Would they keep coming back to us for this funding, or can they get future support from the school district?
we gave them 7,600 last time, and Inglewood was the school that they did. What other school would they do that affects Sammamish?
So I'm assuming, I mean, we have, I think, 5 or 6 elementary schools under Lake Washington, and we also have a high school as well. I am reaching out to find out
Okay.
what particular schools they'd be focusing on.
It looks like this will reach the rest of the district because it says that it looks like the pilot was done at Inglewood. And then if they get the funding for this program, it'd reach 61 schools and 27,000 students. So they would be looking to roll it out district-wide. Is
Yeah,
that what
because
it
they're
looks like?
asking for money, right, from other cities,
Other
not just
cities in the
us.
district.
Yeah, other cities in their district. So Redmond, Redmond and Kirkland.
Mhm.
So they're hoping to roll it out in those areas as well. Yeah, my question was why only 2 schools? Like, I mean, they're only asking for 7,000. They could have asked for more and get into all the elementary schools. But it's a start.
I know
Are
one of
we
my
doing-
concerns, I'm looking at their service units and it says, I mean, doesn't even tell you how many books they're looking to do or how many students they're touching. So I think that's where I'm a little, uneasy is, it's the metrics is, how is this actually impacting the students? And making sure that they're getting access to these books.
Well, it looks like books are part of the, right, in the service unit 2, each item refers to one school receiving diverse books
Yeah.
into its school library.
Mhm.
So it's the training and
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
training and the books.
Yeah.
Is that
I mean,
one
that-
book or, 1,000? So
I can't
that's-
imagine
Yeah,
it'd be one
that's-
book for
so that's-
$7,000.
I mean, so that was a
But-
follow-up question we had actually, Rich, as to how many
Great.
books per school, like, because this doesn't say anything, like, so because the numbers they have here refer to one school receiving diverse books, right? But it doesn't tell you how many books.
Or the other follow-up question that we had was, how do we know that the students are accessing these books?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be my question. How do
Yeah.
we know the books are being utilized versus
yeah.
just sitting there?
So we have those as follow-up questions, but we thought it was worth funding at this level. It was not a lot of money, and also that it's a systemic proposal to try and change a system that is not currently serving the diverse population that we
Yeah.
have.
And I'm looking at the page with the service unit and training of individuals and seeing that Kirkland and Redmond moved up to the 5 and 6 projected teachers taking training. And we moved all the way up to 2.
Mm. Yeah, it depends on like how many librarians they have, right? It also depends on.
Chair, I will also
They're
say
also,
that.
they're also asking for twice as much money
Yeah,
at the other schools.
And then
cities.
it's just the number of middle schools and high schools in the other cities.
Yeah.
that's true.
Any other questions on this one?
So then we'll move to the last one in the cultural inclusion bucket. And this was the 4th IACS proposal, and we decided not to fund this for the reason that Jody cited earlier, that, this doesn't seem to be in our remit to fund small business support. We made a decision to focus on the 3 other areas that were higher priority for us: the mental health, the work with women, youth and seniors, and the cultural navigation piece. So those three were really pertinent. And we decided not to fund this particular one.
Do you have another column in mind for this whole section in case we're able to get more funding through the council?
We were actually looking at the other way,
we
that
are
we
looking
might
at it
have
the other
others
way
that we
around.
might need to cut.
Last year,
Um,
we had to cut significantly. We hope we don't have to this time around, but we have identified a few where we would make some further cuts.
If we
So
need to do further
we need to,
cuts,
yeah.
We have some, identified as potential, but we don't want to ask for that unless we have to the end.
I just really want to push the council.
I agree. And I think we should too. I think we should
Yeah.
push the council to ask more. I think there's some extra money that we can lobby to be pushed toward human services. I think the council might be more open to it this year. So knowing that, I think that Luciana and I could potentially go back and look at funding at a higher level, which proposals we would ask to fund at a higher level. But when we were doing it, we were thinking the opposite, that we might have to cut as opposed to ask for more. And now thinking that we might have more money or want to push them a little harder, we'll go back and ask
Yeah,
for
we
that.
could-
We're ready. When we
Make it
do the
work, right?
full ask, we'll be ready to give you those numbers.
Chair.
And Jody, I think like we could consider funding this to some extent at least, right? Because of the strong track record ISCS has. I mean, this could be one that we could reconsider.
Yeah, I actually am familiar with this program that they have through my other hat that provides services to small businesses owned by people of color. And it's a great program. Of course, we know this organization, they do everything well. And they have lots of connections to folks who are like Uber drivers and restaurant owners and others. And so I think it'd be a great program, but we were thinking that it doesn't really fit into human services and not in the priorities that our needs assessment had stated earlier.
Be putting any of these into a different category then. Yeah, these have been divided into 5 focus areas.
I mean, we did talk about that, like should the mental health be in mental health?
Yeah.
I think with the cultural inclusion piece, it's appropriate that we look at it from a cultural inclusion. Staff thought it was easier that way, and we were fine with that.
Chair,
Go ahead.
I appreciate that we need to look at the potential of increasing funding, but we also have to remember we've got a lot more grant requests this year than what we've had in the past. So when we do add up numbers,
It's going to be scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one question. How would other small businesses perceive this? That, hey, the city is funding certain small businesses, but not others. Is there any problems legally or even from a perception perspective?
This is the same question for any cultural inclusion proposal, right? This organization funds services primarily folks of color, not just Indian Americans, but others. But they don't turn anybody away. It's
Okay.
open to anybody. So if there is a small business that is owned by a white person that's struggling and comes to them for help, they're not going to turn them away.
No, that's good. I think a lot of it is just saying the perception is that we're reaching out to the small businesses within Sammamish regard. So that's great.
Currently, we've decided not to fund it. I am curious to
Yeah.
hear what all of you
Yeah.
think about going outside of our priority areas for this one. Stan saying
Leaves them in
no.
a gap, that's the biggest frustration is that they're placed here, but they could have been over here.
Yeah. So this could be under basic needs. Is that what you're saying?
It could be
Yeah.
Small business.
It could
basic
be.
needs
Basic needs is the most appropriate
Providing-
bucket. I mean,
or, yeah.
Well, we can see if there's room in your in basic needs budget, if you guys want to take on this.
I think they're
There's
gonna
a
come up
lot of
with
requests
huge
in basic
numbers.
needs.
They got
And we are
33
giving,
to
we're
look at.
already funding 3 of their 4 proposals at 100%. So I don't
Yeah.
feel too bad, and it's only
Yeah.
$5,000. So that's not going to cripple them to not
Mike.
fund it.
Same 4.5 FTEs, it sounds like.
For the small business?
No.
For all their work,
Oh,
I mean,
Yes.
Mhm. It's not funding their full 4.5 FTE at
Yeah,
15, at 40,000. It's only one part of
Yeah.
their salary.
and they have funding from
Could be
many
another
diverse sources, I
4.5
think.
too.
Yeah, they do. Okay. Anything else?
Just agree with your prioritization. I think that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. We're gonna move on to the domestic violence. We only had 4 proposals, so I'm gonna kind of give you the high level first. All from 3 organizations, all of them are well-respected organizations that have good track records. All of them have been funded before by us and others. So I'll start with LifeWire, that is 2. So LifeWire provides domestic violence services to Eastside survivors. They're not lawyers. ELAP does, they partner with ELAP, which is another proposal, but they do things like they have housing and support groups and other types of case management type services. So the first 2 are from LifeWire. One is for their emergency and transitional shelter program. They have a new building. It's in a secret location, right? They don't disclose location. And then the second one is for survivor advocacy services. We decided that we wanted to fully fund the survivor advocacy services at 17,000. It's a strong program. And it was a strong proposal. We're only 3% of their total of their budget that they've asked from all the cities compared to all the other city budgets. They asked funding from all the cities. Just as an example, their largest one is at Bellevue at 181,000 and Kirkland at 132, and they're just asking for 17,000 from us. So, so just to give you an idea of how the diversity of their funding, where it's coming from, and that we're not funding a large proportion of their funding. They've actually decreased the amount they asked from last time, and they're decreasing the amount of people that they think they're going to reach also. I don't know why that is. And we had that as a question that we wanted to follow up with. But again, the numbers and the amount that they're asking for reflects that decrease. But they do their strong case management services for domestic violence survivors.
My question would be for staff. We funded them last time, correct?
25,000.
Is it potential or possible that they reduce the population served based on what they performed last time?
So we had quite extensive chats with LifeWire because initially they were not going to apply for funding from Sammamish. And I think they were concerned that they weren't going to be able to get their service units. And my sense is that there was a safe house in Sammamish that they were counting towards residents. And I don't believe that safe house is no longer in Sammamish. So there was definitely a concern that they felt like they weren't going to achieve their service unit numbers. I did reiterate to them that domestic violence is one of our 5 priority areas and that the Commission is very strongly, they have strong belief in advocacy for domestic violence. And it would be a shame to not receive an application from LifeWire as they're the only domestic violence provider on the East Side.
So there is this regional perspective on this one, right? Like the transitional and emergency housing. So emergency is usually the shorter term. They need it right away. They want to pull someone out of their home and they need a safe place to go. Transitional housing is a longer term housing where they're out of the situation and they're trying to get them into stabilized housing. They're doing case management to get them the services they need, and it takes a little while. They can't go home, obviously. So this is for both. They're going to have the emergency and transitional housing in a new building, and they're increasing the number of beds and units that from what they currently have. In this new building, they'll have 9 more units, so more beds. It's not located in Sammamish. It's probably located in Bellevue. And so the amount we're wanting to give, we've reduced it. This is one that I would consider pushing up if we decide that we can ask for more. But we do, even if they're not serving a whole lot of Sammamish residents, we do want to be a regional player and support it. So that's why we went lower, because we see it as a regional investment, even if we're not going to get a whole lot of
And
beds.
we're going to see a lot of that in basic needs coming up.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So that's why we've said at this point, 10,000. But again, if we decide we can push the council to ask for more, it's probably one of the proposals I would argue to give
And
more to.
of course, they also talked about the increased wages to keep people and the
Yeah.
staff.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, that they're increasing from 10 to 15 units and they're increasing their, making their singles into full. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing what they're doing.
Yeah, they're a great organization. The second one from them is a survivor advocacy services, which is the case management services that we are familiar with. Providing referrals, advocating on their behalf, helping them navigate the legal system, all of those things. And we recommended funding at their full request level of 17,640. Any questions on that one? Okay, so the other two, one is for King County Sexual Assault Resource Center. It's their advocacy services, their version of it. And then the other one is at ELAP. With the ELAP one, that's the Eastside Legal Assistance Program. It's legal services for domestic violence survivors. And they partner very closely with a lot of partners in the region, but in particular LifeWire. They do good work. It's not that big of a proposal. It's general operating for their legal services. And we are recommending fully funding at 7,500.
And I like their great mix of other revenue there too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a really good organization, and they're very good on cultural. They have a strong race equity lens, and so they're good in that regard as well.
Yeah, our senior group had a program from them last summer that was well received and
Oh, that's
you know,
awesome.
keeping up with. I think
I like the
maybe
service
person who
unit,
was talking about.
very hands-on about helping. So it looks like a great program.
And then the King County Sexual Assault is comprehensive advocacy services. It's also their sort of, referring when they get calls, responding to them, referring them to different types of advocacy support. And they asked for 2,500. And we, they asked for 5,000. I don't know why I keep thinking 2,500 on this one.
We gave them
5,000.
2,500 last time.
So we recommended fully funding it at 5,000. Right. They increased from last year, correct? From 25 to 5.
It's interesting. One said, LifeWire said they were founded in 1982 and sexual assault said over 40 years, which sounds like 1982.
Yeah, that's true.
Started at the same time.
Right. And so
They're more trauma focused.
they are, and they're not specifically domestic violence in general. They're sexual assaults, but domestic violence survivors also have sexual assault. So they fall into both categories. And it's it's kind of a regional investment
Yep.
for the whole county.
Is this the group that's at Harborview?
No, not necessarily. No, I think their offices are in Renton.
Okay. I remember when it used to be at Harborview.
They have offices at Renton, Federal Way, and Redmond.
Chair, they used to be called Harborview Sexual Assault Resource Center, and then they changed it to King County. So yeah, I understand what
And they
you're.
also work out of the District and Superior Court and the King County Prosecutor's Office. Any questions on that one?
It's a general question. It's totally off base. Is the Together Center back together in Redmond?
So they're still under construction, and it's all very exciting, but no, it's so they've broken ground, but I think it's at least a year away from actually having people in.
All right. Do we need a break or do we want to push through and do the last section on seniors?
Boy, we could be really closing early if we get this over with.
Cool. All right. You want to keep going then?
Everybody okay?
Yep. That's good.
Let's keep going.
Seniors. So we had high level again, we had 4 proposals from 3 organizations. So we'll go through them. So the first one, let's see. I don't have that one as my first one, but I'll bring it up to my top. First one, Sammamish Seniors. So Sammamish Seniors, we all know Joyce is involved. So Joyce, are you recusing yourself from?
If you need some information, I'll be. glad
You'll
to
be happy
provide
to.
it. Another group that's in the
So,
making.
Sammamish Seniors asked for quite a bit in relative to other proposals. They asked for 50,000. It's a newish organization. They've done some good work. They've definitely done some good work. It's been an all volunteer organization. One of their key volunteers sitting here, Joyce, and others. But we contracted with Sammamish Seniors last year and we never got a contract signed and we never dispersed any money. And last year, I believe Sammamish Seniors asked for 15,000 last year.
Mhm.
So we are suggesting that we try that again. We try 15,000 again. The biggest question is that it's not an entity. As far as I know, you guys are not incorporated or a 501c3
It will be under Sammamish Friends this summer, and it's.
as a fiscally sponsored by Sammamish Friends.
It is not going to be fiscally sponsored. It's going to be in Sammamish Friends. It's going to be part of the organization.
Oh, it's going to be a project. Okay, so then it really needs to be changed. Then it's not Sammamish Seniors, is not the organization.
No, it's a program within Sammamish.
Yeah, so
Friends.
the agency would be a different agency applying.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, I think that, which is fine.
Mhm.
But then we need to have information about that organization
Mhm.
and how it's run and its board and all of that. Because we can't give it to, we can't give money to Sammamish Seniors without getting without having a review of the actual organization's budget, their board, signed by their board. So I'm not even sure if legally we can fund this at this moment.
So last go round, it was an exception. The commission decided to fund Sammamish Seniors. They hadn't received a 501c3. Traditionally, we've always only funded 501c3 organizations.
Correct.
correct, yeah.
So last time you weren't a project you were going to be fiscally sponsored by a different
All
organization.
volunteer do-gooders, that's all.
I know you guys are, but there needs to be an entity to give to. You can't give it to individual people.
This was submitted before that April 28th date. And at that point, we were talking with Eastside Friends of Seniors as a potential, and then I changed it to a Sammamish Friends group, which has been around for 10 years.
So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is because this would be a question for staff. How do we do a process like this when we have to make a decision, but we don't have the information from the organization that's actually submitting the application?
Well, I would say that we are looking at all applications. We treat every organization the same. We have a cutoff point. If an organization wants to resubmit information, they can do that. So I see it very kind of process sense. I just see it like, I need to see reporting. We need to see that the city of Sammamish is, named in an insurance document. And so just the thing, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, like, when it comes to like public dollars, like we have to be very kind of
Absolutely.
finicky. And so, if we can have all that, then, so I think,
So we have to, when are we making this decision?
I know, it's the council,
When is that?
October.
Okay, so I don't know about process,
So,
how we should do
yeah,
this, but
I don't know about the timing, but actually the application should be from Sammamish Friends. The details should be about Sammamish Friends, the budget and other information, the funding sources should be for that organization. And within that where they submit or share the program information, you would say that this is
Right.
for the Sammamish Seniors Program. So because this would be a program within that broader organization.
Right.
Right. So it would be like IACS applying for their
Yeah.
mental health program or their seniors program. And since we don't have an application from them, I'm not sure if we can
And we're not
consider.
there yet either. you
Yeah,
know.
so maybe next round you would be there. Yeah.
Or there's that little other column called extra,
What?
that little other column called extra ask of the council.
But Chair, we
But you
need to have
can't
enough.
even, you can ask the extra for the extra ask for the council, but there's no the organization is not making an ask. You're like
No, right now. it's
individual
just purely-
people asking
Just
for it.
purely that volunteer organization.
Right, you're just a
Have
volunteer
people-
organization, which you can be a volunteer organization and be a program, as you said, or be fiscally sponsored.
Mhm.
But that organization needs to apply for this and they didn't apply. So I want to fund you. I want to fund Sammamish seniors at some level. And I think if we had gotten a proposal where we was from an entity, because the city itself cannot give money to individual people.
Right.
And they can't really entertain a proposal from individuals. And right now, there's no organization attached to this.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So
I don't think we
Rita,
can-
like what's the process like in terms of timing? Like if this program were to apply through Sammamish Friends, can they still submit a proposal? Like the cutoff date is.
So I'm going to have my human services hat might sort of jump in from a human services perspective. Like the application is closed.
Okay.
It was April 28th.
Yeah.
But again, that's just me.
Yeah.
From a human services, like for this funding
Yeah.
application process.
Yeah, I mean, it would be,
Um,
I know that you guys do really good work. What I worry about is the integrity. We're a public agency and this is a public meeting. And to say that we would waive that deadline,
Yeah.
would we waive that deadline for another organization
We
that
would
did
not.
not, was just
Mm.
volunteers, that was not an organization that just came to us and said, well, we're not ready yet, but we're going to be ready by October, but we can't submit an application yet because we're not ready. What would we do? We would say no. And so we can't say yes to this if we would say no to any other organization. I just don't think we can. I mean, I'm welcome to hear from other commissioners.
I mean, I know what Sammamish Seniors does, and they're a great group, but I'm looking at your service units and they're a little soft, like contact, that's, I think that would be something that maybe, kind of a little more in depth would be very, very helpful. Because I know the organization does a lot of great things, but just, if I was looking at an organization I didn't know, just seeing number of contacts, I would probably be a little cautious.
But Rich, that's a secondary issue. The main issue is that we can make grants to 501c3s, and this organization is not, this is a
Right.
program, right? It's not an organization. So first of all, we can make a grant to a fully incorporated or 501c3, and this is a program. It's not an organization. They'll need to apply through an organization, and then the cutoff date is gone. That's the issue. I mean, that's a fundamental issue. I mean, if we had addressed that particular issue, then we could talk about, how intense the program should be, or what should be, what type of programming would be more effective. But I think we are just grappling with a very fundamental, foundational
Eligibility
issue.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably only my very limited experience so far. It's probably only a hard decision because there is credibility of individuals and the group. If it wasn't for that, it would be an easy no. And so I think it is a judgment, relatively easy no from my perspective.
I agree. I'm, process driven and making sure that we have this responsibility to have a process that's fair for all organizations. And if 501c3 is one of the requirements, I think that has to be that's the first gate. The program is lovely. It's got lots of substance to it. But I just feel like we need to kind of stick with the rules of the program first and foremost.
If we were, just like a foundation or even private foundations.
No,
need
no,
to
I've,
do-
and
Private
no,
foundations can't do it
we
either.
are very strict about this. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we have like different types of grants we make to for-profit entities. We make expenditure responsibility grants to nonprofits. We do our due diligence in terms of looking at their 501c3 status. And
Yeah.
we have an entire legal team that deals with these issues. So
Okay, well, if there's nothing, Stan, did you have? Nope. Okay. If there's no other comments or questions on that one, we just can't.
I would agree with your assessment, yes.
Okay. So, maybe next round, they'll have all of their papers in place and we'll be able to fund them. Okay.
Before we go to the next one, I do have a question though. I know that a lot of the organizations that we fund don't meet their service units. So therefore, at the end of the year, there's usually funds left over that get allocated in some way, or at least in the past it's been done. My question is, service organizations that we determine not to fund, not just this one, but others, is there a chance for it? Do they open applications again? How does that work?
No, as in like, are you saying what we do with the money that we do not reimburse
Yeah,
organizations with?
previously, the money that we did not pass out
Yeah.
got allocated how? What was the determination?
So the last go round, we had a rollover of funding, and then staff came to the commission with some proposals, and the commission voted on it. But traditionally, I think it's gone back into the general fund. Am I right, Mike?
Yes, that's correct. So any funds that we don't reimburse compared to what council allocates typically goes back in the general fund. But as Rita mentioned last year, I think it was last year, we did kind of an off-cycle process, basically, where we came to the commission with some proposals, kind of repeating what Rita said here, and the commission determined if those were reasonable things to fund. So it was kind of an off-cycle grant process.
You're
Well,
talking about cross-path mental health?
Yes, that was, yeah.
Right. I'd like to see something like that again, not necessarily for ones that we've turned down, but rather than put it back in the general fund and be used for whatever, I'd rather see it used for human services, since that's where we had determined that it was needed to start with.
Okay, Judy noted. Yep.
Okay, so let's, we're almost done. We got 3 more. So the other 2, there's 2 for Sound Generations. One for their transportation services. This is where they have a volunteer take an elderly person who doesn't have transportation to, an appointment or something. The problem with this one is they only asked for $100, and it just was like not worth the administrative effort of drafting a contract, getting insurance for $100. So we just decided we weren't going to fund that one. It's a great program, but also, yeah. So the Helping Local Seniors does offer that same service. So we're going to talk about that one after. So Sound Generations, their second one was Meals on Wheels, which is providing frozen meals to folks at their home. And that was $697. And even that was really low. We're just kind of like, it's a lot of administrative work to do a contract for $697, but at least it's more than 100. So we decided we would fund that one at $697. I wanted to just throw in the $100 into that, but there are rules around procurement, and we can't give more to an organization than what they asked for. And so we can't do that.
Commissioner Mead, that's a typo. I'm do apologize. Sound
Oh.
Generations Meals on Wheels, I put down as 0 recommended. So I'm going to amend that to 697. And
Didn't we
that
say
is,
six- weren't we gonna give them
I
697?
believe it was 0. That was in
Oh,
my
wait, did we
notes.
say 0? Oh, maybe we
But,
said.
oh, okay. I beg your pardon. Then that's my
That's what I
bad.
thought.
Sorry. Okay. Yep. I will
Yeah.
go ahead and amend that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes, so that's that one. Are you all okay with that one, 697?
Yeah.
These are ones that I
That's
just
for
want to
10
say,
people.
ask for more.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to ask, do we have any sense, staff or commission, why they would ask for such a small
Yeah.
amount? And can we advise on that in the future?
Yeah.
We are with you. We would have considered more, but 100 is not. I mean, do we at least let folks know if 1,000 is our minimum
Yeah,
to
minimum. Do
proceed?
you have a minimum?
Yeah, do we have a?
So as a commission, you have not come up whether you want to minimally fund an organization. I know other cities have minimum funding requirements,
Okay.
but we have not had that in Sammamish as of
It's not
yet.
a $10,000 maximum funding.
Yes, that was the point. Yeah.
So maybe we should, let's pencil that in for next process, that we should think about a minimum. I think what they did was they looked at who they serve and they just did a percentage for all across the board for every city.
Yeah.
And they tried to be, proportional.
Yeah.
So
But
that's
it's still
that
10
one.
residents under Meals on Wheels, and it's 2
Yeah.
residents on transportation.
Yeah. Right. So it's proportionate. It's just not worth the money, the work. Okay, last one. Wait, last one was Eastside Friends of Seniors. And this is a program that we've, I believe, helped before, helping local seniors. And it's like going to their house and helping them with handyman services, doing some transportation, doing some shopping for them, those sorts of things. And they also do informational, so in-home support, light housework, volunteer transportation, similar to what I just mentioned. And then information referral, SAN telephone? Do they call it SAN?
We did a
telephone?
lot of phone follow.
It's a phone thing to get them information. And answer the phone. So that's that one. And we suggested that we fund them at 20 at the full amount, correct?
We don't have service units or resident counts.
No service units. Yes. What did we decide about that one?
Last time
Fund-
they had, 70 residents total?
What did we decide on this one, Rita? Why we didn't have
Yeah.
service units and then we.
Chair, so last in 2021, they served a total of 64 residents as service units for transportation, in-home care and information referral. So I think you made the decision
looked at
based
the
on their
last
track
one,
record.
right, we
Yeah.
looked at their track record. We would, obviously when we do a contract with them, we're going to have to get service units when we write up the contract.
Yeah.
And so I suppose we could put a little asterisk to say we
Yeah.
based it on the past, how much they've done, and those are reasonable numbers. And we would assume that those numbers would be similar for this round. And that's it. Any questions on that one?
I'm sorry, what is the funding request?
The
dollar amount?
funding request was 20,000. And last year or the last go around, they asked for 20,000. So it's the same amount that we funded them.
Do they also get COVID care money? Does that fall?
Yes,
into
they
that?
got one-off COVID funding. Yes.
Anything else? Any questions or comments? Great. Thanks, everybody, for bearing with us.
No, thank you.
Great job.
Chair, I have a question for staff. What matrix do we use to verify service units?
So we look at their application and dependent on like if we, so if we fully fund them and we look at their service units, and that's what we expect. If we fund them at 50%, then we'll reduce it by 50%. They provide us with quarterly reporting based on their application. And then we reimburse according to whether they've achieved those service units.
Do we visit?
They
Do
submit
we
reports.
Look for sign-in sheets? I mean, how do we verify
Yeah.
that they met those service units?
That's a great question. Well, prior to COVID, I would get in my city car named Betty. I know, really, we named called Betty and drive. So we had monitoring visits, and so myself, along with all my peers, we would divvy up organizations. So once every like 3 years, we would go monitor, and we would literally go into their office and look at their paperwork and kind of just see things firsthand. And we'd have a sheet where we would like write notes on, and so that was done in the past. Obviously with COVID we've stopped that, but I do know Bellevue is starting it up, in-person monitoring visits, so I think we're going to be starting that up as well. So yeah, and that's more of a Commissioner Gano, that's more of a coordinated effort, because for me to visit like 43 providers, that's a lot, so we kind of share that up. So yeah.
And I would just say that we don't give a lot of money. I mean, 10, 15, 20,000 to ask them in their reporting to submit, jump through a lot of hoops, like show us your sign-in sheets and all of that. It's just a lot for that much money. We have relationships with most of these organizations. We should trust them that when they're reporting to us that they saw 10 people in this quarter or whatever, that they are not. I think it's fine to do, I think it's good city money. We have to do some checks. So I think every 3 years or doing this kind of coordinated thing is a good way to do it. But it's not something that I think I would want us to spend our resources on doing that kind of verification for every organization for every reporting period or anything like that. It just would be way too much.
I know it's a group effort throughout all the human services in the area to visit service providers that are being funded, and it's not our money, guys. The taxpayers' money.
I understand that, but we are in relationship with them, and we know that, so
I
we're doing
appreciate
it
that, and I
every
know-
so often. We don't need to do it for every reporting period.
And so, I mean, but to Stan's point, like if, they receive funding from multiple cities, if there's a way to, so this is one area where we can collaborate, I think, rather than each city trying to monitor each organization, where we are jointly funding. Like if there are some organizations that multiple cities are funding, we could arrive at some agreement on how we would monitor progress, maybe, so that they are not individually having to do, reporting or monitoring for different cities.
Yes, Commissioner Mayor. I mean, I think as funders, we're very, very aware that, yes, we need certain information, and we need to make sure that, there's credibility and that, they have, they're doing following process. But we also just individually don't want to have 12 cities go to each provider. So that's why.
That'd be terrible.
And so what we tend to do is that what we've done in the past is that I'll say, I'm going to go, monitor Eastside Legal Assistance Program. Who wants to come with me? And then it would be this kind of and then I think, talking to your point, Commissioner Nishioka, I think as funders, we have tried really hard to establish those connections with providers. And I think it's also just even dropping into some of their programs, seeing them at work. So yes, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Gano, there has to be checks, but I also understand what you're saying, Commissioner Nishioka and Commissioner Mayor, they are obviously, taxed for time. So that's why we do a lot of work collaboratively
That's
with the East
really
Side.
smart.
I agree. There's a big level of trust that comes into play, and they have to report the matrix anyway, or the numbers, service hours. And it's a good thing to visit and just to say, what do you need help with?
Absolutely.
Here's another service organization that may be able to step up for you. because they get busy, they get involved. in
I
what they're
agree
dealing
totally,
with,
Stan. I think
And
it's
it's
part
nice
of,
to be able to cross-reference.
yeah, I think
too.
it's good for relationship building. I think also you do need to check as a city, like, oh, you have an accounting system,
Yeah.
right? You have fiscal policies and you have your insurance or whatever. I'm just saying, and so I agree with you. I think we should do that. I just don't want to, I don't want to say that we want to look up log sheets for every event they
that-
do. Send
That
us your
wasn't my
log
point.
sheets.
My
Yeah,
point is to be able to visit them and make sure they're doing what they said they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's all, just a verification
Yeah.
system. And it's nice that we partner with the other cities and have the ability to do that.
And I personally love connecting like with the providers, and so yes, that's one of my shiny fun moments. You know, even via a Zoom call or whatever else. And yeah, you know, I have so much. I digress slightly, but I have so much respect and humility when I speak to like nonprofit providers. They are working.
Mhm.
They are folks at HopeLink are having to go to HopeLink for services. And I have so much respect for the work that they do, frontline work, getting paid pittance.
Mhm.
It's such a calling. And so they're great people. But I digress. I apologize.
They also have to have audits too, right? And
Yeah,
that's the 990. So
yeah.
you can rely on their systems and know that they have systems in place
Right.
by just
That's
looking
true.
at their audited statements. And
Mhm.
That's right.
And many of them receive funding from foundations, from the government, where they have major reporting requirements. Many of them also do evaluations, you know, so you can, it doesn't need to be monitoring or evaluation we are doing directly. I mean, if they are doing something for other funders, we can look at those resources as well.
I will also say, Commissioner Mir, like we have a number of newly, you know, small organizations. And so I think like we would be remiss as funders, like, you know, it's not enough just to give them money. It's to really just sort of explain to them, like, this is the expectation and let us like, you know, so we've talked extensively, like me and my peers, as to what does that look like? Do we kind of have like a certain, like, you know, one or two organizations that we're like that, you know, person that they can come to, you know, so yeah, we're very aware, like, yes, you can give money, but then it also, if you're a new organization, a new small organization, you've got to kind of walk them through that process. And, you know, yeah,
Which is great. It's
And-
good
and-
that they have you.
Yeah, two things, staff, if I could clarify. So did I understand you to say that there are HopeLink staff that are also receiving services from the organization? I just want to be clear on that from a funding and salary standpoint. And then also to ask, since I'm new, do we or do other cities do anything as far as capacity building, funding, or that sort of thing that's brings those organizations together in a helpful, efficient way?
that's a great question, Commissioner Hyman. So traditionally, human services is really like service unit, you know, based, like show us what you're giving us for the money we give you. We have not traditionally done capacity building, funding, and yes, it's clearly needed. Yeah.
I would, this is what I do for a living. My organization is a capacity building organization for nonprofits. I'll just say that Bellevue is now funding to the tune of about almost $200,000 a year, a capacity building program specifically for Eastside organizations, more smaller organizations that need that kind of support that Rita was talking about. And also focused on BIPOC led, so people of color led and serving organizations. So they are City of Bellevue has a much bigger budget, and they're generally the ones that would have the resources to do something like this first. But hopefully it'll be something that they're going to do, and we'll see how it goes. And other cities will say, oh, maybe this is something, you know, maybe this is a regional thing that we want to put money into the pool to build capacity for all the nonprofits that serve the East Side. And maybe that's something that we might want to consider as a human services commission later, that we have our priorities in terms of human services, but we want to support the organization. So let's put some of that money into capacity building for those organizations so they can do their work better. For example, supporting groups like Sammamish Seniors to help them figure out what kind of organization they want to be at. What does a fiscal sponsorship agreement look like? Those kinds of things. I would advocate for that. I think there's a lot of value in that.
It just, yeah, it sometimes seems that at the level that, funds are asked for and size of staff and, salaries for staff, it just seems like these organizations that are on very, very tight budgets. And so to also do the sustainability support seems.
Because it's very hard for them to find funding themselves to help with getting someone who can teach them how to do QuickBooks or review their bylaws or develop I don't know, fiscal policies, any of these employee handbook, any of these kind of systems and processes that you need to run a strong organization and to meet these requirements. They're just human services. They're coming to it because they're Latinx and love working with youth, and that's their skill set. They're not accountants. They're not lawyers. They're not organizational development experts.
Yeah.
And then they have to figure it out, but they don't have time because they're working with the clients.
Right.
So
Frequently those are very different callings and gift sets.
very
and
different.
all of
Yeah.
that,
Exactly.
Anyway, just, I know we're off agenda, but just kind of thinking the training that we got early in this process seems like that resource, training, support, encouragement could also, particularly for the small organization, seems appropriate. But thanks, Commissioner.
Shall we move on with the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Staff report.
Chair, this is going to be very, very quick. Only because it's your birthday and I need to get you out of here. No. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So Issachar Food and Clothing Bank, as I've said in past meetings, Corey Walters, who was their executive director for 11 years, has left. They now have an interim. What's interesting, they're looking to expand their operations, and they're currently confined to a very small facility in downtown Issaquah. And so they're very much limited by their space in their current location. So they're in discussion with our Savior Lutheran Church in Issaquah, and they've been offered 4 acres. The Savior Lutheran Church has seen numbers dwindle in congregation, and so they have all this space. So they are currently looking at the idea of putting in a community hub there, with Issachar Food and Clothing Bank having their main office there. So it looks like the talks are going really well, and it looks like it's a viable option, and hopefully they'll be signing the papers imminently. They also did say that with COVID relief now kind of falling by the wayside, and with inflation and gas prices, the food banks are definitely seeing more people coming in. So just that combination of COVID relief going, inflation and gas, they're definitely seeing more people come through the doors. What else? So I think as funders, we're meeting with smaller nonprofits monthly. I think I mentioned that to you before. We're having an informal Zoom coffee chat, which is sometimes a bit awkward, but sometimes not, because it's like, 8 funders and 1 person, but again, it's kind of nice. Well, we've met some new organizations through that. And then just finally, Esperanza Barboa, the program director of ELAP, who has been there for many, many, many years, is going to be leaving. Yeah. And there has not been there's not been anyone more dedicated as a nonprofit provider than Esperanza from ELAP. So
where is she going? When is she leaving?
at the end of the month. Yeah. And so I will say, Esperanza has been just the face of ELAP for many, many years, and really did walk the walk. And so we're sad about that. So yeah, and that is it really. It's a very lean staff report, Chair. So I will throw it back to you.
I have a question for staff.
Right.
I'd sent you email previously. I had a council member who approached me and said that the city has millions of dollars left in COVID relief that's not being spent. And she wanted to know why Human Services wasn't tapping into it. And I told her that's up to city council on what they do with that funding. Is that correct?
I think that was an appropriate response, Commissioner
Thank you.
Gano.
Okay.
Yes, so that is a topic that I know council is going to be considering as part of their budget deliberations. They're going to be going through the process. Actually, just last night, they had a special meeting to workshop the budget to really kind of kick off the whole process. And the American Rescue Plan Act funds and our remaining CARES Act funds are certainly on the table for discussion. But at the moment, we don't have, that direction to the Human Services Commission. to be
My
able to
question
choose it.
would be for funding of these programs, a lot of them are affected by COVID. Is it possible that council may consider diverting part of those funds to our grant program?
I do see that
Is
as
it
a
something we
possibility.
should consider soliciting council?
Advocating for?
Commission is able to advocate as it wishes. I think it will probably lead in that direction if I had to guess. And we did use CARES Act funds in the past for COVID relief grants. I believe across 4 or 5 rounds, we distributed about $500,000 in
We did.
funds
We
to
gave it, I
to
remember
nonprofits.
recommendations on rental assistance, utility assistance, mortgage assistance.
right.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a process for that? Like, should we be going to budget meetings as the public or as the commission? Is there a way for us to, is there like a official process that we should be giving them input before they make any decisions, like to help them make the decision?
Can I comment on that? We need to approach as individual citizens versus commission.
Okay,
So, yeah, get involved in the budget process.
so
as
how
a
do we do that?
citizen.
Do we go to the meeting and do public comment or?
That, send them email, even
the-
talk to them one-on-one if you want.
Right, there's I guess, an official mechanism to provide public comment. There's, it's on the city council meeting agendas.
Okay.
It's basically, you email it to our city clerk and citycouncil@sammamish.us. And that public comment can be submitted at any time. It doesn't necessarily have to be, for a specific meeting. I guess the other thing the commission could choose to do is, if it feels strongly enough, to write a letter to the city council.
From the commission,
From the
As the
commission.
as the commission, from the commission.
Correct.
And what is the timing of them making these decisions? Like, when would you said they kicked off their budgeting process, so.
We're still relatively early, but I mean, considering that council approves the budget in November, there's not that much time, but they don't see, so the high level overview of the budget process is that the departments right now are in the process of developing their budgets.
Okay.
Their budget proposals. The city manager will receive those budget proposals and say, here's what I want to include or not include. And then the city manager proposes a budget to the council saying, we've talked about it with all of our departments and here's what we think as a starting point it should look like. And then the council takes it from there and they modify it. Maybe they want to do a new program or they want to, use funds for a certain purpose. And the city manager's proposed budget comes to council in, I believe it is October for the first time, September, October.
So we're going to count on you guys then. You're the city department, the human services department, to tell the city manager that we want to have a bump up in our budget, right?
Or would we just,
We are doing department budget presentations this year, which we haven't done for past budgets. So each department, and we're under the city manager's office, will present to the council kind of an overview of what's being funded in the budget. And so part of that for the Human Services Division will be a discussion on grant funds and kind of what we've given in the past and a little bit of history there. It's typically the commissions come with an extra ask and it's increased over the years and kind of this is historically what we've done. But if council wants to do something different, use ARPA funds, CARES Act funds, that's an
Okay.
option on the table. I don't know if I'm being very clear there, but
So could this affect the current grants that we're looking at, right? If we decide to fully fund everything that's in the basic needs, just because we know that there's funds there, could that be part of their decision making? I mean, not that we would do that, but in an extreme, if we knew funds were there and we just said, okay, let's fund all of the things we would like, could that make it into the budget and therefore be, as opposed to having to ask for additional funds?
So I think I'm not sure if I completely understood that process. So I think you're aware how we've done it in the past is we shoot for a number that matches the previous budget, just assuming there's no change from one budget to the next.
Yeah, so I'm saying, can we overshoot that?
We do.
So
Okay.
that's the additional ask or the additional recommendation that subgroups have been putting together over the past couple grant cycles. So we'll say, here's the number. If we can only get the base budget amount from the last year, this is how much we'll fund the organization. However, we think they're very worthy. And if we could get more money, here's what we would do. So we have kind of two, like an A and a B recommendation. And over the past, however many years we've done this, 2 or 3 grant cycles, the council has always approved the additional money. So we've kind of slowly been creeping up the grant funding budget. But if council is able to provide that direction sooner, like, hey, commission, you have X amount of money to work with, then that may make things a little bit easier
Mhm.
for you all
Yeah.
to have a number to
I
aim
don't know
for.
if they'll commit to it ahead of time because they are in the budget process. But
The timing with the commission's process isn't ideal because you all will be done presenting subgroup recommendations next month in July. And then we're kind of in the process of sort of formulating the final recommendation. So it may not come before that. But I can report out I'll try and talk to our interim city manager and report out at the next meeting once I have a little bit more information.
This parallel process, you're saying it's not coordinated and we have to try and, we could do some advocacy on our own to just like put that ear in to the council to say, we want to ask for more, we need more. And you have money, we believe you have money, so divert some more. Think about that before in your budget process.
So,
Yeah, we did it when we presented. in
Right,
person.
we did that before.
Yeah.
So we could do that again. And then I would ask you guys that when you're putting together your budget, you could say, well, this is what we did last year, but we really want to do more.
well, because,
When you go to your
realistically, cost of living's gone up, salaries have gone up, benefits, there's new benefits that are offered by the state that nonprofits are having to pay. Cost of doing business has gone up.
And
So,
Services have gone up.
and services and
Counts.
requests for grant. So they need to look at it realistically. And I'm sure they will.
Is this going to be an in-person again in October?
Sorry, what was that, Joyce?
Are we going to be in person presenting this in October like we have in the past?
That's the plan, assuming, knock on wood, we don't have another wave of COVID that shuts us back down.
Mhm.
But I think if I could, I think going forward, obviously this year's a little bit, the timing isn't ideal between the council's budget process and our work. I think next budget cycle we'll want to get on a more, probably get in front of council ahead of the grant cycle and just, have the joint meeting and talk about, we have a grant cycle that's coming up, and is there any willingness to increase funding? So we kind of know that ahead of time. I'd like to be a little more proactive next time
Yeah.
around.
That'd be nice, that'd be good.
Do we have commissioner reports? Well, I can just tell you, seniors can be offering program within this room in August, and then move to the lodge at Beaver Lake in September when the Kempership kids are gone, so we can have midweek things going on there too. And the YMCA is going to be making meeting rooms available, the 2 in the front there, for drop-in opportunities for any age to come in middays to be able to do something that's not swimming and fitness, but maybe to talk to each other and play with puzzles or talk or bring in their coffee or whatever it takes, just to be a more of a community center. So conversations are going well,
Good.
except here.
Joyce,
But I
can I
understand.
piggyback?
What?
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure, go ahead.
Sammamish seniors are trying to re-identify with a different name. Because people like myself, I'm not a senior. Even though I am. But so that's one thing. And there's a very active book club as well. So
Facing the Mountain is the next one.
yeah, so get on Facebook, go to Sammamish Seniors, look at the activities. You can also sign up for our newsletter
They get it
and
now, right?
let you stay informed.
Yeah, I'm on the mailing list.
And then spread the news. Because when we first started at the Boys and Girls Club, it was overflowing.
It was, we had over 250.
And then
Wow.
COVID rolled in and we had to find a new way to work. And now we're starting to get back again. So spread the word. Thanks.
And I think the point was that we didn't bother to go 501c3 because we weren't spending any money. We didn't need any money. We were just offering something, including the newsletter with all the references to the other activities in the community and neighboring communities and doing a public service.
And then
We
you
didn't cost anything
realized,
Except time and energy.
and you
that-
realized you needed help.
and
Can't
that-
do it all alone.
Well,
And now it's time to have a professional program director part-time to
so it was
pull it
all,
together.
all volunteer. So to become a nonprofit, it costs money. So that's part of the reason why they were looking at the grant process to get money to get going too.
But then you need your
Insurance, et
501c3
cetera.
to get the grant. So it's a little bit hard.
It's kind of backwards, you know,
Yeah.
you got to be a 501c3 to get a grant, but you can't get the 501c without funds. In an all volunteer organization, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
So
Stan's been part of the advisory committee. As you may tell. And Tom is still the facilitator, if you remember him.
Yeah, of course.
So, okay. Is there any more business to come before this group, like a second meeting or something for basic needs? Or are we going to just
When are we doing
spend to
that?
midnight on the 13th?
The 13th?
As of now, we have our meeting scheduled for the 13th.
So we're going to do all 33 of them on the 13th.
Whew.
aren't you excited?
Are you going to hear that?
Yeah, you guys
everybody?
are gonna have to go like
We are
this.
gonna click through them.
Yep.
Okay, so that
Have
being that,
Julie, facilitate and then she'll get us on track.
keep these guys going too.
We'll make
Okay.
sure each slide only has 2 sentences.
Yeah. Okay, there being no business, let's have an adjournment. Anybody want to vote to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, move in a second. I'm no discussion. All those in favor go, yay.
Bye.
And see, we did it by 8:31.